As the main character of the series, Ichigo Kurosaki is privy to a number of rather epic moments throughout Bleach, with awesome moments spanning each of the various story arcs. And in this video, I wanted to celebrate our protagonist by listing what I believe to be the top 10 most epic Ichigo moments throughout the Bleach manga. Now, of course, as the main character, Ichigo has the spotlight most of the time, which means that there are so many incredible moments to choose from, so invariably, some of the moments that you probably think are Ichigo's best didn't make this list. There isn't really a criteria for this list per se, I've just chosen what I generally think are the coolest, most epic, bombastic moments for our main character. So of course, if there are moments you would have liked to have seen on the list or would include on your own, as always, please don't hesitate to leave them in the comments below. And before we begin, I just want to say a massive thank you to everybody. The amount of support and well wishes I've received since we hit 100,000 subscribers has been, in a word, overwhelming, but also just so lovely to see and to read, and I really appreciate everyone reaching out to me with all your support. It's just been so lovely to see. And the character popularity contest, which we announced in the last video, is blowing up. We've had so many entrants, thousands of votes. But like the nerd I am, I'm having a lot of fun tallying them all up. If you haven't voted for your top 5 favourite characters yet, make sure to do that, as voting will end on December 31st. You can leave your votes kind of wherever you like. Originally it was supposed to be in the comments of that video, but just leave them somewhere I can see them and they'll be added in. It's a whole lot of fun, and the list we've got growing so far is looking pretty interesting, so make sure to vote for your favourite characters now. And of course, if you're not actually a subscriber yet, make sure to hit that button, as you are in the best place for Bleach content like this every single week. And also don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it as well, because it really does help support the channel, it helps support me and get this video more exposure on YouTube to ensure it can reach more Bleach fans just like yourselves. If you want to support me that little step further as well, we do have a Patreon for the channel too, where you can go there, you can get videos like this early, and you can support me for as little as $1 a month. And all of the names on screen right now are people currently supporting me over there on Patreon, and you guys have my absolute eternal gratitude. Thank you so much for helping me do what I love. And let's not waste any time with this video. We're going to jump straight into number 10 in my top 10 epic Ichigo Kurosaki moments. And for the start of this list, we have to return to the start of Bleach, Chapter 1, specifically where Ichigo gets Shinigami powers for the very first time. With his family under attack by a monstrous and soul-hungry Hollow, Ichigo turns to the injured Rukia Kuchiki, and the two of them make a daring gambit to try and save the day. Rukia stabs Ichigo through the chest and tries to transfer some of her Shinigami powers to him, but he accidentally takes all of her powers instead, transforming himself into a Shinigami, donning that famous black Shihaku Sho for the very first time, and wielding a colossal Zanpakuto. These images are absolutely iconic, and Ichigo quickly defeats the Hollow Fishbone D before beginning his journey, which will see him through to the end of the story. This is just an incredible moment for Ichigo, but also for the world and the story of Bleach, as this is the kickstart that shifts everything into gear. So many of these shots are so iconic. The shot of the two of them looking at each other as the blade is about to pierce Ichigo's chest. The shots of him now as a Shinigami under the dark of night. It's just a fantastic scene that really helps to set everything into motion. For entry number 9, we have to move a fair bit further down the story now, as Ichigo has been struggling in the wake of the beginning of the Arrancar arc with the burgeoning sense that his inner hollow is about to manifest and devour his soul for itself, and the weight of this has been crushing him for a very long time, until he comes across a renegade group of hybrid Shinigami called the Vizards, who decide to help take him under their wing so that he can master his inner hollow powers. And Ichigo defeating his inner hollow is our number 9 spot on this list. Their interaction is wonderful. This is, of course, White's best moment in the series as far as I'm concerned, but for Ichigo, it's also an incredible display of his resolve and his desire to fight and grow stronger to protect those he cares about. Again, the imagery on display here is wonderful. I love the mirror image aspect of Ichigo and White stabbing him with a beautiful bone-white tensor Zangetsu, showing who's boss at that time and giving the fantastic king and his horse speech. But Ichigo grabs the blade and sends his own power spinning back at White, transforming him and taking back control of their body. After a quick pep talk by none other than Kenpachi Zaraki, Ichigo awakens his resolve, his eyes glimmer, and he manages to run his blade through his enemy. White bursts into a cloud of blackness and transforms away, disappearing, but leaving Ichigo with a warning that should he die, he will return. However, a now very confident, grinning Ichigo, whose worries have finally been mostly quashed, seems pretty content that he's managed to stabilize his power and his inner hollow for now. In the number 8 spot, we have another very early moment for Ichigo as he finishes up his training in the Shattered Shaft under the watchful eye of Urahara Kisuke, acquiring his Zanpakuto for the very first time and awakening his own Shinigami powers which lay dormant inside his soul even after the ones that Rukia gave were ripped away from him. This is one of those incredibly cinematic moments as Ichigo, despite being bound by Tessai's level 99 Kido, is beginning to break free, screaming at the top of his lungs as a hollow mask forms across his face. Jinta and Ururu prepare to jump in and subdue him if necessary, but Kisuke keeps an ever-watchful eye, expecting Ichigo to get out unscathed in the end, but things look pretty dicey for a time as Tessai prepares to drop the ultimate version of that Bakudo upon him. But just at the last minute, there's a massive explosion from the Shattered Shaft. Something bursts out, hits the ceiling, and comes crashing down again. There's a wonderful moment, and this is truly a brilliant depiction of how cinematic Kubo's arc can be, as Jinta watches through barely opened fingers as he sees these sinister red eyes burning through the dust. Well, now they suspect Ichigo has become a hollow and they prepare to finish him off, but as the smoke clears, they actually see Ichigo wearing a Shinigami Shihakusho, but also bearing the hallmarks of a hollow. In my opinion, this very, very early design of Ichigo, sporting some of the elements that would, of course, foreshadow him being a hybrid being, is one of my favourite designs Ichigo ever has. I think he just looks really cool. I love this look he has where he's wearing like rags as well as his Shinigami outfit, but they're also like bound to his shoulder by these like small pins. I think overall this is just a great look for him, but obviously the final cherry on top of this moment is when he draws his smashed up blade and rams it into his face, freeing himself from that hollow influence and emerging a Shinigami. Now, number 7, I was a little unsure if I would really be allowed to include this moment, but as far as I'm concerned, this is still Ichigo, just Ichigo not in his right mind. And so for number 7, we have Ichigo under the influence of his hollow powers, the true instinctual powers of Zangetsu, defeating Ulquiorra, but primarily catching his Lanza del Relampago in his bare hand and crushing it before striking the Espada across the chest. It's a truly awesome moment, and also a very dark one, the culmination of a very dark portion of the Bleach story. The Dome, as it's known, is one of the really bleakest moments in the series where Ichigo himself dies, fulfilling the prophecy that White gave him back in the much earlier stages of the Arrancar arc during his Visor training. Here, Ichigo has died and succumbed to the true force of his instinct, the true power of Zangetsu taking over his body, turning him into a monstrous hollow-like being. And with this power, we get a ghoulish battle of demons, essentially. Truly exemplified by this final moment where Ulquiorra tries to land his most powerful attack, but Ichigo just grabs it, crushes it in his claws, and then his demonic face emerges through the dust as one of the last things Ulquiorra sees before this fight rapidly ends. It's a truly brutal and just fantastic moment. I remember being on the edge of my seat the entire time Ichigo was in this primal state of his, but truly this is the moment that really locked down exactly what this meant for Ichigo, how far gone he actually was, how monstrous he had become. Of course, this would only be exacerbated later on when he stabs his friend Uryu through the stomach, but for me, it's truly this moment that really encapsulates everything, when he manages to grab that incredibly powerful attack in his bare hands, crush it, and then leer at Ulquiorra through the smoke, like just this hellish face. And Ulquiorra pretty much knows from the look in his eyes, he's a goner. It's very telling about the nature of the Ichigo versus Ulquiorra fight that I don't really think that there is an epic moment for Ichigo himself. That epicness, I guess you could say, comes from when he has transformed into this monster, and that's the very core of this fight. The major sticking point of this battle is how it represents Ichigo's final descent into Hollowdom, and that has been the journey that he has been on the entire way through this Arrancar arc. Coming in at number 6 and rounding out the bottom half of this list is a real favourite moment of mine, not just for Ichigo, but for the story itself. And if we were looking at this from an outside perspective, the story as a whole, in terms of my favourite scenes, this would be probably higher up than this. But as Ichigo moments go, I'm pretty happy with it at 6. And that's Ichigo arriving in the first Quincy invasion in the Thousand Year Blood War arc. This chapter is just marvellous. I've spoke about this before. Chapter 512, The Stand Ablaze, is just wonderfully done, wonderfully directed. It looks fantastic. Every panel is just impeccably done. Every panel is necessary as well. There's like no wasted space in this moment. And Ichigo's arrival here is so somber, so destitute. In fact, from place number 7 to this one, we've gone from 2 incredibly dark moments to the next. And this is just so good. Ichigo desperately trying to escape this Garganta prison that he's been in. Akon sacrifices it all to finally break him free. And Ichigo doesn't wait around. He immediately bursts out, one-shots Shaz Domino and explodes out of the sky, causing even Yhwach to turn on the spot. But Ichigo doesn't hang around. He barely surveys the situation before vanishing without a word, causing other Sternritter to be like, what the hell was that? You know, I felt something, but it's instantly gone. It's in this moment that obviously Ichigo is feeling incredible emotion, sadness, worry, but also bubbling anger. But it's perhaps here, maybe more than ever, I think, that you truly get a sense of Ichigo's power. You know, he appears on the field in a flash. You know, he appears out of the sky like some kind of divine messenger or something, just bursting onto the show. Remember, of course, that up until now, the Sternritter have basically just demolished the Soul Society. There's practically nothing left. There's rubble, captains are nearly dead, Yamamoto is dead, and Ichigo arrives and causes a number of them to be shocked, to be worried. They sense something has arrived, but they're not even quite sure what it is. He's so fast. And there's a lovely, of course, the actual moment is when he speaks to Byakuya Kuchiki, when Byakuya is near death, up against the wall, or in the wall, barely able to move, blood, more blood on the outside than in. My number 1 most gruesome moment in the series, if you've seen that video. And Ichigo doesn't really say anything, and his face is crucially kept out of the panels. And Byakuya is doing all the talking here, and he's basically, you know, saying, are Rukia and Renji alive? To which Ichigo sort of bluntly confirms, and then he allows Byakuya to speak effectively on his deathbed, even though he obviously survived. But he says, you know, this contemptible man standing before you, he starts crying. He says, please allow me one last request. Ichigo, please protect the Soul Society. And there's just this, you know, 2 astonishingly good pages. Ichigo covered in darkness, lightning flashing behind him, only specks of colour actually being shown here as rain is lashing down. You can see his fist is tense. He's on the edge and he's ready to deal some pain to these guys. The next page, we get that close-up of his face, illuminated by a flash of lightning, and there's just pure, unbridled rage in his eyes. This is an Ichigo we've never really seen before, and even though he says nothing to Byakuya, as Byakuya himself notes, he knows that Ichigo will do everything he can to fulfill Byakuya's request. It's just a phenomenally awesome moment. Possibly the moment I'm like most worried about for the anime. They just have to get it right as far as I'm concerned. I would be devastated if they don't. Like, I think there should just be no music. just the patter of rainfall, and then the crack of lightning as you see Ichigo's face. Oh man. It's wonderful. It's so incredibly done. That's my spot, number 6. Ichigo looks awesome, and he's ready to just kick some serious Quincy ass. And so, entering the top 5 now with position number 5, we have Ichigo getting his powers back at the end of the Lost Agent arc. This is obviously a hugely cathartic moment for us as readers, but also Ichigo himself. We've had to endure Ichigo undergoing the most traumatic experience of his life as his family and friends are systematically turned against him, and it seems like all hope is lost. However, after being stabbed through the back by Rukia and regaining his Shinigami powers, looking, by the way, in my opinion, the best he has ever looked. I love the full-bring Shikai and, by extension, the full-bring Bankai, which I was also considering putting on this list. Barely just missed the mark. But this is just such a fantastic moment. Ginjo Kugo thinking he is still in control, but Ichigo just swings his blade at him and sends a massive shockwave of energy towards Ginjo. Ginjo thinking he's using Getsuga Tensho, but Ichigo's like, that wasn't Getsuga, I was just swinging my sword. At which point he starts charging this immeasurable Reiatsu, and Ginjo screams at the top of his lungs, what is this Reiatsu? As Ichigo says Getsuga Tensho, twists it around, brings this just massive power around him, and destroys probably a historic, priceless mansion at the same time. But it's just a fantastic moment. And I've said it before that some of Kubo's best artwork is in The Lost Agent, and he really gets to flex here with this moment of Ichigo unleashing Getsuga Tensho once again after not having his powers for at least a couple of years. So this is just a fantastic moment where he just sends Ginjo flying as well after that. Ginjo attempts a retreat, but Ichigo grabs him, flings him into the air, and hits him with another massive blast. And it's just awesome. It's just a really cool moment, and it was exactly what the fans were looking for after a period where Ichigo had felt so helpless. So this moment definitely makes the top 5. Coming in at number 4 is something I never thought I would see, and it's just absolutely crazy. I remember having my mind blown, and even though I was reading weekly spoilers at the time, I still couldn't quite believe it. And coming in at number 4 is when Dangai Ichigo grabs Aizen by the face and basically throws him halfway across Karakura Town, outside Karakura, and into the Rukongai. And that's it. That's the moment. But it doesn't get any better than that. It's so awesome to see. And again, another real moment of catharsis after some serious build-up. For some context, at this point, now don't forget Aizen's my favourite character in the series. I love the guy, but he had been essentially on one very extended monologue for about the last 3 volumes. Let's not kid ourselves. Aizen is responsible for probably 90% of the dialogue up until that point. The final Fate Karakura Town battle, Aizen is just on top of the world, he's kicking everyone's butts, and no one can stop him. And Ichigo in particular seems incredibly lost. He doesn't know what to do, he thinks there's no way out, and he thinks they can't win this fight. Gin, of course, is secretly probing him to see if there is any room for growth there. And when that time finally comes, and Aizen seems on the edge of achieving his goals, Ichigo arrives, now donning this fantastic new appearance where he has long hair, almost like a tired, sleepy look to his eyes, but now one of his arms is bare, but also wrapped in the chain of Zangetsu. This scene was so cool. Like, it was just so good back in the day. And, it's quite tropey, but I also love that. But the main epic moment is when Ichigo says a couple of things, but then Aizen starts off on his spiel again, where he starts going on and on about how you have no Reiatsu, you failed at this last chance at evolution that I gave you, but don't worry, I'll destroy Karakura Town. But before he can finish his sentence, Ichigo clearly has just had enough. He just grabs Aizen by the face and sends the two of them absolutely flying out of Karakura Town before launching the final boss down onto the ground far below. Pretty much setting the stage for the fight to come, but it was so good to see nonetheless. And now as we enter the top 3 of our epic Ichigo moments, this is the culmination of the entire Soul Society arc. Everything Ichigo had been working towards, and he finally manages to do it. He rescues Rukia. Ichigo rescuing Rukia is the top 3 moment for me. It's just totally badass, and it really shows you exactly how far Ichigo had come, how much he had grown, and how powerful and confident he had actually become in the face of apparently insurmountable odds. The Sokyoku is about to destroy, literally obliterate Rukia's body, but it's blocked by a familiar blade, and Ichigo stands in front of her wearing this fantastic cape. He looks so cool here as well. And very nonchalantly, he's like, yo, and he manages to stop the Sokyoku. It backs up, the Sokyoku's destroyed. But then we get just a succession of awesome Ichigo moments that I've kind of wrapped up all into this one part. He then turns to Rukia, kind of tells her to watch and wait as he brings his blade down on the scaffold, destroying the entire thing and setting her free. Just fantastic artwork again, so dynamic and so full of motion, where Ichigo just rents this wooden scaffolding in half. And then, of course, if that wasn't enough, if Kubo hadn't done enough for Ichigo already at this point, as Renji tries to flee with Rukia, he's confronted by not 1, not 2, but 3 vice captains, Chojuro, Omaida, and Isane. But Ichigo arrives looking totally badass, completely out of their league, and takes all 3 of them out in basically 1 to 2 hits, just smashing Gigetsuburi in a single move. It's iconic, it's amazing, everybody who has seen Bleach knows it and remembers it, but this whole sequence of Ichigo saving Rukia is truly, truly epic, and just a fantastic moment for our hero. But there is one moment left to come in the Soul Society arc that I think is just a bit more epic than that. And our number 2 spot goes, of course, to Ichigo activating his Bankai for the very first time in the series, Tensa Zangetsu, in the seminal battle against Byakuya Kuchiki. This is, again, there's so much that has been said about this already that I don't really know what to say, but it's totally, totally iconic. Ichigo just completely dumbfounding Byakuya at the idea that he would spit in the face of their traditions so easily by having achieved a Bankai so easily despite being a human. But of course Ichigo has done just that. He is there to completely flip Soul Society upside down, both literally and figuratively, and he is here to turn even their most sacred traditions on their heads. And Ichigo does his absolutely famous pose where he pulls his sword in front of himself, utters the word Bankai, and transforms into the Tensa Zangetsu that we all know so well. But that's not even it. This whole sequence of Ichigo activating his Bankai for the first time, we get to see just how skillful and impressive it actually is, where he completely outspeeds Byakuya and brings the tip of his blade to the captain's throat, before going toe-to-toe with Senbon Sakura Kageyoshi itself, and even going so far as to demonstrate his incredible speed by deflecting all of Senbon Sakura Kageyoshi's many thousands and thousands of petals at once. It's a truly amazing moment, and that chapter, of course, Black Moon Rising, where he activates his Bankai, will go down in history forever as one of the most influential and memorable Bleach moments, not even just Ichigo moments, of all time. The only fully coloured chapter we ever received, but it is truly a wonderful moment and one of the most epic Ichigo moments in the entire series. But for me, there is one moment left that actually still beats out that moment as being the absolute most epic Ichigo moment there is. And to be honest, you probably know what it is if you've reached this far in the video, but for this moment we must travel back to the Arrancar arc, back to that fight with Sosuke Aizen, where finally Ichigo has reached his breaking point. He's had enough of this guy, he's had enough of Aizen's ranting, going on, completely delusional at this point. He's had enough of the threat that he poses to Karakura Town, his friends and his family, and he wants to put an end to it once and for all. So Aizen, clutching Ichigo's throat in his now twisted and monstrous hand, says, you're finished, Kurosaki Ichigo, but Ichigo looks up through his extremely long hair, barely even resembling himself at this point, I think. He looks so mature. And he says, "Is that all you've got?" You know, channeling Yamamoto at that point in time. Very similar moment, clearly done on purpose, I think. But Ichigo breaks free of Aizen's grasp, and the most epic moment for Ichigo in the series is when he uses the final Getsuga Tensho. He says that he's going to show Aizen this incredible power. A black and blue Reiatsu appears out of nowhere, completely engulfs him and the arena that they are fighting in, and Ichigo reveals the final Getsuga Tensho transformation, where he has perfectly and truly fused with his Zanpakuto. This design, the final Getsuga Tensho version of Ichigo, or as many have dubbed it because it's easier, the Mugetsu form, is probably one of the absolute best designs in the entire series. I mean, it just is. He looks so cool. He looks fantastic. He's now got incredibly long, flowing, jet black hair. He is, as the name Mugetsu would imply, a moonless sky now, completely dark. Red eyes, this kind of blue, greyish bandage wrapped all around his body. He has become one with his Reiatsu, one with Getsuga Tensho. His skin, his hair, what's left of his Shihakusho ebbs and flows like shadows in the wind. And he just looks so good. And of course, Aizen is completely gobsmacked, doesn't know what to say, keeps trying to justify it to himself until he realizes he no longer can, at which point he just flies off the handle about how impossible this situation is. But Ichigo's not listening. He gathers essentially a strand of the night sky in his hand, says Mugetsu, and just brings it down. And I love the way the anime depicted this. You know, it's not an easy task, I imagine, because this is literally just one move to end the entire Arrancar arc. So it's difficult, I think, to make it, in a way, not anticlimactic, because it's quite hard to do. I love the way the manga does it, of course, just covering everything in darkness. You see that wonderful wide shot of just a pure black curtain cutting through the land. And Aizen himself is just destroyed. Like, you see the transformations just shatter into nothingness. But I also love how in the anime the sound just cuts out. Very clever. I think it's so good the way he says Mugetsu, and you get that final inner dialogue from Zangetsu as he says farewell to Ichigo. Because of course, at this point in the story, Ichigo is staking everything, putting everything on the line to defeat Aizen here, knowing that he will lose his Shinigami powers, the ability to see ghosts, all that sort of thing. It will all be gone. But it's worth it, and it's that incredible personal sacrifice as well that I think makes this moment so truly epic for Ichigo, where he really bears the weight of not just the human world, but his duty as a Shinigami upon his shoulders to defeat this threat once and for all, and he just throws literally everything he has at Aizen in one daring moment. It's great. It's truly epic, and for me, this is the most epic Ichigo moment in the entire series. I just think it's so good, and it's a culmination of everything that he is as well. I really do love it. I think that it's just it looks fantastic as well. Some of the best art ever, and for me, that is my number one pick. But like I said, going into this video, Ichigo just has so many awesome moments. There were so many that didn't make the cut that I was very close to putting in. Moments like Ichigo smashing Shrieker's face to rip out his tongue. Moments like Ichigo shattering Jidanbo's axes. Moments like Ichigo arriving on the battlefield in the second Quincy invasion. Ichigo throwing a Getsuga Sero combination at Yhwach. Ichigo choosing to protect while facing off against Ginjo Kugo. So many moments make up our protagonist. For me, these are the top 10 I chose, but of course, if you have a different list to mine, or a favourite moment you'd have loved to have seen on here, let me know in the comments below. Don't forget, guys, to vote in my character popularity contest poll if you haven't done already. Don't vote if you already have, because they won't be counted, and also if you are going to vote for all 5 characters you get, make sure to vote for different ones, as they only get 1 vote each. We've had so many so far, it's truly awesome to see the turnout. But if you haven't done already, make sure to do so before December 31st. Alright guys, but until next time, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't done already. But until next time, I'll catch you later. See ya.